Hello, welcome to Doing Business in Europe. Mehdi Koip
and Gabrielle Zuder
are delighted to welcome
Jurian Sleister, Executive Vice President of MCI Group.
Hi, my name is Jurian Sleister. I'm the Executive Vice President of MCI and I'm here at Schema Business School in the studio to have an interview with Gabrielle Zuder and Mehdi Koip.
MCI is a very large integrated agency specialised in the creation of events for corporate and institutional clients with headquarters in Switzerland but 44 offices in 22 countries around the globe. We're delighted to have MCI and Jurian with us today in our studio. Jurian, could you give us a brief overview of the activities that your company is involved in, please?
MCI is a service company. We are a provider of meeting services, communication and association management services. We are based, as you said, in 22 countries with 44 offices, and currently we count about 1,000 staff. The company was created in 1987 and our clients are 50% in the institutional field, that is associations, governmental, non-governmental business, federations, and the other 50% are corporates, the pharmaceutical market, car companies, communication companies, fast-moving consumer goods, companies like that. This is our field of activity.
At what moment in time did MCI start to internationalize? When did you start to go across borders, and where would you have gone at the very beginning?
Founded in 1987, we became international in the year 2000. In the year 2000, we had already opened one small office in Zurich. In Geneva is our headquarters. We had about 80 people there. We had opened an office in Zurich in 1999. And in the year 2000, we opened an office in Lyon, just over the border from Geneva. That was our first international experience.
Why was that France, coming from Switzerland? Is that a matter of proximity?
Yeah, proximity very much. The language. A lot of the people in the Geneva office are French. And it was also born out of a partnership with another company that we knew well, where we said, let's do something together. And we actually joined forces and opened an office together, 10 people. A small operation, but our first international step.
How about activities across Europe? Is Europe an important place, market, location for you?
Yes. Our founders, Roger Tondeur and Ursula Wiggert, they had a vision, they had a dream. They wanted to create a leading company. I remember Roger saying that he said he wanted to start by creating the leading agency in Switzerland, and people laughed and said, well, that's nice, Roger, good luck. And he did it. And he said, my next step is that I want to be the #1 in Europe. And people again looked at him and said, Roger, good idea, good luck. And he did it. And so his third phase was, and now I want to be in the top of the world, worldwide. And again, this is happening. We're one of the leaders, let's say, because it's a bit difficult to measure how you compare apples and pears. But we are one of the leaders in this industry in the world. And the internationalization in Europe was very important because that was our cradle. We were fairly international already from a staffing point of view in our headquarters office. And Roger said he wanted to move into markets like not only France, but also Germany, the UK, Spain, the Netherlands. And this was where we concentrated our efforts, and this is where we started to grow.
Was there any particular reason for actually choosing those markets over others in the first phase?
This was where the industry was strong. If you look at particularly what we're doing, let's say for the institutional market, when we help associations, federations and organizations like that with the organization of their annual congress, for instance, you have but to look at the market research and see where the big annual congresses are going. And in Europe, these are the countries and cities that pop up. So we knew we had to have a presence there to be credible, both locally and internationally. And it's a little bit of where does the client take you? There's a mixture. Sometimes a client for whom you've organized a conference, say in Geneva, who goes to Berlin later says, can you do this again for me? Because it worked so well. And you say, of course we can do this in Berlin. And before you know it, you're looking at partners in Berlin. And part of our development definitely was also driven by who do we know and where do we know them. Our network is very important for that. So it's not an ice-cold, calculated machine way of conquering the market. It is who do we know, who have we been working with in the past, who are our friends, and where do you build the relationships. The people element is very, very important.
So what is your main mode of entry into these new markets? Is it mergers, acquisition? Do you go alone? At what moment in time do you use what?
Mergers and acquisitions are probably the predominant way for us to enter into new markets. But we've had startups, we've done joint ventures and partnerships. But mergers and acquisitions are probably the best way to go. Yeah, this is what has been the most popular model for us.
And at what moment in time would you go alone?
If we have business, clients want us there and we have nobody suitable to operate with, then it depends a little bit on how much business is there. There is a cost in starting up an operation. You have to have the right people. One of the examples that I can give is our Paris operation. We were, as I said, early on in France, but many of our clients said, if you want to be serious about doing business with us, you have to be in Paris, because that's where our main offices are. And so we said, okay, let's do it. And we were very lucky that a key player became available on the market at the time that we wanted to make that step. So we hired that gentleman, and he's now the managing director of our French operations. And our Paris office is our third largest office of the group, and that is third largest out of 44 offices. It's been a real success story.
Conversely, actually, the other side of the coin is, why would mergers and acquisitions fit you well? And why did you actually pursue that particular strategy?
We have this vision about wanting to be global and local at the same time. I think it's very important. This is sort of what we call our blue ocean, the blue ocean strategy of where do we want to go, where do we think the market is going. And we think that there's a lot of clients that want to be able to execute a strategy, a plan on a global level, but with local implementation. And if they can sign a deal with one partner, one supplier, that makes that happen, then that's what they're looking for. Then there is consistency in execution, the way we build the contracts. There's the learning curve that works in our favor over time. So these are all the things that work in our favor. And it is not easy to build an international company. It has been challenging for many companies that have tried. Only few have managed to truly go international. And I think I can safely say that MCI at this point in time is the largest privately owned company that has grown as we have internationally. So that is a nice market position to have.
I believe you also go across borders using joint venturing. At what moment in time would that be appropriate for you?
Let's say if we want to test out a market and we don't know the market itself very well, we're not ready to take over a company or merge with a company, and we want to see if it works. If today we open an office in a country, this also means that for all our existing clients, we can offer a new market. We say, if you want to move your meetings to that market, we now have an office there. We can guarantee the same level of execution, the same level of detail, the knowledge of your brand, the consistency of our services in that new destination. And if you are really in control of the company, it's great if you can master that, if you can do a merger or an acquisition. But if you need to learn a lot about the market, and if you need to understand more of what's going on, sometimes it's very useful to do a joint venture. Japan, for instance, if you're not Japanese and you want to break through in that market, it's good to have a partner, and we've opened there with a joint venture because we believe that was the right strategy.
Now, MCI has its headquarters in Switzerland.
Yes, in Geneva.
Very important European operations. And Switzerland, of course, we know is part of the European Free Trade Area, of EEA as well. Not full member of the EU, at least up to now. Do you think that Switzerland has particular value, brings particular value to MCI, and also does the European market bring something, a specificity, an advantage to MCI?
I think Switzerland is a brand. It's really perceived as a brand. It's a country that has an image. People talk about safety, about quality, about everything running smoothly. There's something about the neutrality of Switzerland. I've been told by some of my colleagues in Asia that the perception of being a Swiss headquartered company is very good and adds value to the perception in Asia. So that's very good. On a larger scale, Europe, yes. I think that the collaboration between countries, maybe one monetary unit like the euro for many of the European countries, has been advantageous. Definitely the euro in the sense that when you start budgeting and you try to build a group with companies in different countries, it takes away a fair part of the fluctuation of the currencies if you don't have to worry about that. Of course, being headquartered in Switzerland, we still work with the Swiss franc, whereas many of the surrounding countries work with the euro. But it still takes out a lot of the clutter. The German mark, the the Dutch guilder, the Italian lira, it's all gone, and that makes a difference. Also, there has been an improvement in the ease with which we can hire talent from other countries. We can move people around. It is very important for an international organization, and that's one of the reasons we want to grow, is that we offer opportunities to our staff. By growing, you create career opportunities, and creating career opportunities keeps the talent with you. You want to attract the best, you want to deliver the best services, you have to offer something in return, and a career is very important. So if people can move around between offices and between countries, you're giving them a real career, a real development, and that's something that the young people today very much appreciate.
And when did you feel ready, and what made you feel ready to move away from Europe, which was, of course, a very important market in the event industry? When was that moment?
A good example for that was when we opened an office in Singapore. Now, that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. We had 2 clients actually who said, and these were clients for whom we provided association management services. They said, we need to be closer to our members in the Asian market. Can you please open an office there? Because you're already providing our services in Europe, and this is what we need, but we need it over there as well. And with the knowledge that we would have business, we said, okay, let's take the step. We want to become global. It's part of our picture. It's part of the plan. So this is the time to go to Singapore. And one of the leaders of our company, he picked up his stuff. He used to live in Brussels. He picked up his stuff, sold his house, sold everything, moved to Singapore and set up shop there. And that was a real example of how we move with the clients, we move with the market. This is a typical option for a service company. If the clients want to go somewhere, you can grow along with the clients, and that's what we did.
We talked about proximity, the proximity factor, so Switzerland and France, etc., Europe, and then worldwide. Do you feel that even on the worldwide basis, there's a proximity factor, maybe not by kilometers or distance, but would you see rather an internationalization into countries where you find an institutional, cultural proximity or similarities actually?
I think what we do is we look at the meetings market and we see where does the business go, where do the companies meet, where do organizations meet. That already says something about the culture. It says something about the way people do business, the way they interact. We talk about the meetings and events industry as building community. We bring people together, and whether you do that over a one-off event in a destination, whether you do that around a product when you do a product launch, or whether you manage an association and bring people together, not just for an event but continuously. It all fits into our portfolio of services, and I think that we go where the market is ready to approach communities in that way. And ideally, since we are into live communication, they will have a certain infrastructure. They will be reachable, international airports, meeting space, hotels. That's the sort of infrastructure you look for. But it's fairly easy to identify. There are some very good international organizations that keep track of where the meetings go in this industry. On the association side, for instance, there is ICA, the International Congress and Convention Association. They have a database. For many, many years they've been tracking over 100,000 events that have taken place in the world, congresses where people come together. If you look at where those congresses go, where the big ones go, where's the business, then you can very easily see a pattern develop, and you know that's where you want to be with your offices.
And while you were doing all of this, what was happening with the competition, and how did you react to that? Competition.
Like I said, I think that we're the first company that has developed in this way, to this size, being privately owned. Actually, privately owned, we're not on the stock market. We're a partnership. There's the founding family that created the company, and then the directors have become partners. There's about 80 directors, 85 directors that have become partners in the business. It's been our model is we're one company. It's our business. What have competitors done? Some competitors have tried to do this. That is understandable. Sometimes you can even see signs of where they try to copy you in the way they use corporate language, in the way they use abbreviations or slang, as we can say in our industry. We start something and they start using it. It's nice. It's a credit to apparently we must have done something right on that point. Others say no, we position ourselves differently, niche market, and they serve very specific clients. That is an interesting strategy. It's of course also a bit dangerous as a strategy. We've seen 2 years of crisis and different markets have been hit in different ways. if it's your client group that's being hit and your niche market is there and your clients dry out, then you could find yourself without business very, very quickly. So over the last 2 years, we have seen some companies go out of business, companies that were very promising and that had some good talent on board, but the client mix, the geographical mix just wasn't there. And I think that our strength lies in our portfolio, the geographical spread that we have, the different services that we provide, and the different types of clients that we have. That is our strength.
With internationalization, you also have things happening within your own organization. The setup of positions and functions evolve in any kind of way throughout those years of internationalization?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, when you start in as a small, one-location agency, it's fairly hierarchical. It's the typical triangle. There's the chief, there's lots of Indians, and there's the middle management somewhere in between. But over time, as you start growing and you create a few offices, you have the geographical division, but you need to start thinking about how do I align my services? How do I make sure that the client who comes to my office in Paris, in Berlin, in London, or even in Singapore has the same experience? Because it's one brand, it's the service that we sell. And so we started working on a different management model. We introduced the matrix organization. The matrix organization has worked well for us. So we have a geographical management board, which we call the management board, and then across the services in every office where we sell a particular type of service, this is all overseen by what we call the business board. And there is a balance between these two. So a person sitting in Paris being responsible for Congress services has both his managing director to answer to, but also the vice president of Congress services, who is sitting somewhere else in another country, but who sets the standards for Congress services.
The matrix organization has been somewhat criticized as well by consultancy companies, academia, and practitioners. Why do you think it works for you in particular?
Yeah, matrix organization is very, very, some people love it, some people hate it. There's beautiful examples of companies that completely failed in putting it in place and pulled out again and had to do it differently. I read a number of books on it, and there's a whole gap in publications, I think, in-depth publications until recently, when a few books were published that really describe the situation well. For us, it works because of the culture of the company. I think the culture in a service company, and again, we are a service company where we don't make products, we make services, so our culture is very important for us, the way we are, and which is strengthened by the way we behave as a leadership, the way we communicate internally, the way we do things around here, as they say, and also our brand, the image we want to project outside to the world. These are key factors. There is always going to be, in a healthy matrix organization, there's going to be some friction, there's going to be some struggle. It's important that there is a balance between the two powers, the geographical and the product practice power in our case. If there's no balance, there is no matrix structure. And then the advantages of the matrix structure disappear, which are very speedy reaction, simple communication lines, because the organization is fairly flat. So matrix organization works for us in the sense that we look at the same service from different perspectives, from a market perspective and from a service perspective. And that balance, if properly maintained, works really, really well.
It's an interesting point you're making about services. Services are not necessarily reproducible twice in a row in the same kind of way. They're certainly perishable, etc. What else did you find that MCI had to contend with over the years in order to make sure that through this growth you were not exactly standardizing, but you were delivering the same high quality across the board?
Well, one of the things, a trend that has been coming up in the industry very much at the moment is the coming of the procurement officers, and this happens first in the corporate business, and then it starts happening in the association business. Clients learn how to buy better. They know how to analyze and cut to pieces and measure every piece and say, how much does this cost? Why? What are the conditions for this? So procurement has forced us to think really, really hard about how we provide services. How do we measure that? Can we prove that we're adding value? What is it worth? How much can you charge for one registration of one participant to one conference? A transfer, the booking of a hotel room. How much can you charge for the service of booking a flight? If you package it, is it then worth less or more? Is it more complicated or less? What do you do with the data? Can you do something with that to add value? So procurement has given us the incentive to really think about how we're defining value. And we have to be able to show that we can deliver value and services in the same way, decomposed, analyzed in different offices. If we sign a contract with one international client who expects us to deliver a certain type of services in, say, 12 different offices in 8 different countries, we have to be able to do that. One of the things we do to make sure that we get that right is the training of our staff. And with the size that we've reached in our industry, which is considerable for our industry, we've created what we call the MCI Institute, a learning and development platform for our staff. People come together on a regular basis and go through courses. And by investing a lot of time in that, we can actually maintain that standardization of quality of services. We allow, of course, for adaptation to local markets in as far as it is needed. The expectations in China of a meeting are different than the expectations in Germany. So if you can't service your client properly like that, then you're not succeeding. Pure copying is not necessarily the best solution, but the same principle should be maintained. And again, if one client comes to us and they want to sign one contract for execution in many countries, this is typically the strength of our model. This is the sort of business we're after. In fact, one of the ratios that we like to apply within our company is the 50-30-20 principle. We say that 20% of our business should be opportunity driven. A client that knocks on the door says, I want to launch the new car in 12 weeks from now. Can you make me a proposal? You're the agency I want to talk to, come up with a concept and execute. Maybe this client will never come back. It's an opportunity that presents itself like that. Great. 20% of our business. 30% of our business, ideally, we would like to do with clients who keep coming back. You build up a loyalty. It's more difficult for the competition to attract them away from you. You get to know how they work. You win time. The learning curve works in your advantage. So 30% of that business, we hope, is with repeat business. And then 50% of our business we try to do with clients who use more than one MCI office. And this is really playing into our strength. Because we're a global company, but also local in every market, we can provide something very special that our competitors cannot easily copy, because no such group structure exists. And again, there is loyalty because you work with multiple offices with a client. The structure is difficult to copy. So it's good for us for our business forecasting. We can, at the beginning of the year, see 60, 70, sometimes even 80% of the business coming for the year, which in a service company is really, really nice.
Thank you very much. MCI is global, local, European, international. How about the clients that you just talked about? Can you make the difference? Can you see what distinguishes, say, the European client from the worldwide client, from the non-European? Is there any specificity, anything that is perceivable from you in terms of what the client expects?
I think we do business with a lot of international clients who are also truly global. So you might find them in Europe and outside of Europe. What you then notice is the way people within the client company do business. And there, the traditional differences between cultures apply. I wouldn't challenge that in the sense that what has been written often about the way people do business in Asia, in different countries in different ways, absolutely, is maybe totally different from what they do in Europe. But yet, the French and the Germans don't do business in the same way either, but it's European and very different from what Asia does. In the Middle East, there's a way of doing business. South America has its own way, etc., etc. So we do recognize those differences within one client company, where people from different offices in different parts of the world do different business. And we recognize that and we have to respect that. It's sometimes a challenge both for us and for our clients to make sure that a contract which is written with certain rules and guidelines in mind is being executed or respected in the same way, interpreted in the same way, both by the client and by the supplier all over the world.
When we were talking earlier, you actually mentioned the entrepreneurship of the founder of the company, and how much do you think that actually accounts for where MCI is at now? Very much. I think the entrepreneurship, the two founders of the company, again, Roger Tondeur and Ursula Wiggert, are entrepreneurs, and they had a dream, they had a vision. Roger's son Sebastian has joined into the company, and he very much is the entrepreneur as well. Next generation, the technology, the marketing speak, what we expect from the next generation. The students that will be watching this interview, they're probably much more savvy in technology than in social media than you or I will be. That spirit of moving the limits, pushing further away, finding new ways of thinking, adding new value, going to that
what we say, that blue ocean where there is no competition because it's a new way of working, accounts for a very, very great part of the success of MCI. With good leadership like that, and then good execution that follows up, because we need qualities. And I always say Swiss quality worldwide, a little bit of that brand, using of that brand of Switzerland. That, I think, is that combination of factors really is at the foundation of the success of MCI.
Lastly, where do you see the future for MCI, but also for the industry? More consolidation, perhaps?
Yes, this is very much an industry that's still very much maturing. I sometimes compare our industry with the advertising industry. There you have already seen the consolidation of companies. So the giants, the big groups are coming up. We always say that in 5 to 10 years from now, maximum 10 years, there will be 5 or 6 big players in our industry. Then you sort of cut out the fat in the middle, and then there will be a lot of smaller players, either national or niche markets in certain types of services. So that's definitely what the future will bring. We see the rise of the procurement forces. We see what we call the war for talent, finding the right people. We see ourselves moving from the pure logistics to the contents and the added value part. We have to prove the value of the meetings. We have to contribute to the success of what the client is looking for. It is not just about executing what they ask. Results, 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 that's key. If you cannot deliver results, you'll be out of the game. And so I think that these are clear signs that as in every service industry, a service has a life cycle, and our services, what we thought was expertise in the past and has become experience, is now purely efficiency. You write down how you do it. You need a very simple and flat organizational structure to execute those processes, and you should be out there already thinking about what is the new thing that the people will need, what is the better way of providing our service. And I think that is for people who work in our industry and young people who start in our industry. They need to understand that difference. There is a lot about meeting planning and event management and communication and association management, which is visible in when events happen, people come together. Logistics, that's what you see on television, that's what you see when you go to a conference. But all the work that leads up to it and that follows through after an event, and how you manage an association and how you build a community, that is the real work. That's where the future lies, where you can bring value with communication, with association management, with events. That's when you make the magic happen. That's where the people come together.
Thank you very much. Here, Jan Slijster, Executive Vice President of MCI.
My pleasure.